Hello, I'm Martin Starke, and welcome to the latest edition of the Total Saints podcast. It's where we get together a panel of Saints experts to discuss all things relating to Southampton Football Club. And we stream each episode of TSP live on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So if you're watching live on either of those platforms, you can get involved in the conversation using the comments section. Coming up this week on the podcast, it was 2 away games in the league this week with trips to Burnley and Brighton. We've got a reaction to both on the way. It's the penultimate match of the season at St Mary's this weekend. Crystal Palace, the visitors, so we'll look ahead to that one. And what a week for the Saints women's team, a league and cup double. We'll certainly be discussing that later on. But let me introduce you to our TSP guests this week. Just the two of them. Glen de Cour is the writer of the weekly Saints blog, League One -10. Just back from Brighton. Everyone's saying what a great away day it was. How was it for you, Glenn?
It was decent. I mean, you should obviously never let the result of the performance ruin a good day out. But honestly, if we'd carried on playing like we did the first 40 minutes, no amount of alcohol or sunshine would have made that decent, because the first 40 minutes was diabolical. But good day out. Lots of people seem to be enjoying themselves. I think there's probably more pints per head consumed at that game than any that I've been to since the cup final, I would say.
Was it the sunshine? Was it the sunshine?
I think it might have been.
Holiday.
I think it might have been end of season, perhaps, and maybe people were trying to banish the memories of Thursday night in Burnley. But no, it was a good day, and we got a result out of it at the end. So happy days.
And Ralph was talking afterwards about the away fans and how great they were. So it was a decent atmosphere.
Yeah, there was. I mean, even at 2-0 down, and we'd obviously had the unfortunate injury with Tino as well. But no one seemed to be too miserable about things, and everyone was determined to back the team. So it was good. But it certainly helped getting that goal just before half time. That sort of gave everyone a boost going into the second half, including the 11 players on the pitch. But
definitely.
But yeah.
All good. Steve Grant is also with us, the owner of SaintsWeb. How's your week been, Steve? You've been on the move again?
Yeah, been out in Dubai for a week. Just to make a change.
Not quite as sunny as Brighton.
Well, 37 degrees says otherwise.
All right,
it's been very hot this week. It's been a warm one, even more so than usual around here. But no, it's a decent day with load of the Dubai Saints at the Brasty Beach Bar. So that was a good afternoon. Yeah,
excellent. The biggest hello and thank you, as always, is reserved to our wonderful patrons wherever you might be listening or watching live this week. Welcome to episode 195 of the Total Saints podcast. Just a little reminder that we're going to be hosting a live podcast in Southampton for our 200th episode. This is going to be on Friday, the 27th of May. It's going to be from 7 o'clock at the Five Rivers Bar in Beavers Valley. That's the sports bar. The evening is going to be supporting the Saints Foundation. So 100% of the ticket proceeds are going directly to that charity. If you're interested in coming along, you can find the links to the event in the description for the podcast. And of course, we'll be sharing that on our socials over the next few weeks. So after going 2 goals down in the first half, James Ward-Prowse helped to salvage a point at Brighton. Glenn, it turned out all right in the end, but that was quite an eventful 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we're going to talk about the Burnley game later on, and you kind of thought there was going to be a reaction today in the same way that there was a reaction against Arsenal to the abysmal performance against Chelsea. But the reaction of letting in a goal in less than a minute wasn't exactly, you don't want your centre half tackling your goalkeeper and giving Danny Welbeck an open goal from 3 yards. So wasn't the best of starts. In the first half, we didn't look like we knew how to attack or defend. There was nothing really going on. Tino hit the post, didn't he, just before he got injured. But other than that, we had the injury break, and then Brighton scored again because we lost the ball high at the pitch and just a shambles, and it ends up in an own goal. So the first half was terrible, and like I say, we couldn't attack, we couldn't defend, but we've got a guy who can take free kicks, obviously. And I haven't seen it back. It looked like did it go round the wall or through the wall, or
kind of went it kind of went past the wall because the keeper set the wall up for Prowse's right-hand side and he's bent it down the left-hand side. So basically the side that the keeper should be watching himself.
Yeah.
But he's done the age-old thing of, I think I know which side he's gonna hit it, so I'm gonna take a step to my left.
Yeah.
At which point he's then scrambling to get back.
The goalie didn't look terribly clever from where I was, and the Brighton fans.
I didn't think Prowse hit it particularly well.
No,
but well enough, obviously.
Yeah, I spoke to a few Brighton fans on the way out, and they didn't think the goalie exactly did himself any favours anyway with his movement. But that got us to half time with something to play for. And in the second half, we were just much better. We defended better. We were much more aggressive in our defending. Just got higher up the pitch. The midfielders pushed onto theirs a little bit, and I think we realised that Brighton are no great shakes. We've just given them 2 bad goals. Getting the goal, equalising was great. I was on about the hour mark, wasn't it? And but from Brighton's point of view, Ward-Prowse has had a free shot from the edge of the box, not marked. So I felt like we could have pushed on and won it, but the game kind of evened out after that. And the second half, the last half an hour, I think both sides probably could have won it, but I don't think anyone really deserved to, based on that last half an hour. So I think we take a point. Happy that we've finally reached 40 points. And,
hurrah!
Yeah, and we've
now we can properly switch off.
Yeah, now we can probably get on the pitch and wait till the end of the season.
I mean, what did you make of it all today, Steve? I know you saw this one. Is a point better than nothing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly when you, great finish by Salisu, by the way, for their second goal.
Yes, quality.
I mean, he could certainly teach our centre forwards how to finish in that sort of position. But I think if you're 2-0 down, just about to head in at half time, and you come away from that game with a point, I think you're always reasonably satisfied. I think. As Glenn said, could have won it, could have lost it. The gross offside was very tight, and again, I mean that was one of our sort of old failings as well, wasn't it? Of basically just giving a guy, I mean, similar to what Brighton did with Prowse's equaliser, really, in that you give a guy that can shoot from distance all the time in the world to line it up, and then seem surprised when the ball ends up in the bottom corner. I mean, the offside flag kind of came to our rescue there, but. Kind of got away with that a little bit. But I mean, as Glenn said, second half was a lot better. We just looked a lot more, not necessarily like our old selves, but at least looking like we knew what we were trying to do. I mean, so many of these games in the last month or so, we've looked completely lost, as if almost as if like it's like that Sunday League game where you all turn up half drunk from the night before, and you've brought in 5 ringers because loads of other people have already cried off sick with hangovers, and you then try and play against the team top of the league, and you're all kind of wandering around, sort of not quite sure who's got what duties and stuff, and it was, I mean, just the first half was just abysmal.
It really looked like we had no plan whatsoever in the first half, and in the second half, it looked like we all were at least trying to sing from the same hymn sheet. But in the first half, just nothing. Yeah,
I mean, second half we woke up, didn't we? And it was a lot better. And ultimately, if we play like we did in the second half for the rest of the season, then I think we'll be fine, and we'll get some more points on the board. And I don't think it's going to be won't be quite the sort of depressing end of the season as the last. Certainly Burnley midweek and the Chelsea game had suggested it might be, but who knows? I mean, it's one of those, you've got to play each game on its merits, and we'll see how the guys look Saturday afternoon when we kick off against Palace. Because I mean, if we start the game well there, then we'll have a chance. If we do what we did today, then we'll be in trouble again. And it's just so frustrating.
It's interesting you say we were kind of like back to our old selves in that second half. I'd almost forgotten what our old selves was like. It seems that long ago. And Glenn, 6 changes. If that isn't a manager saying he wasn't happy after midweek, then I don't know what was. Back to the 4-2-2-2 formation. So Salazar, Livramento, Redmond, it was Teller, Adams and Long, wasn't it? All recalled. Long was an interesting choice, perhaps.
That's one word for it.
What did you make of the changes and the guys coming in?
Well, as I looked down the team sheet, 1 to 11 before I got to Shane Long, I was thinking, well, that's fair enough. Elyounoussi and Armstrong haven't been great the last couple of games, so Redmond deserves a go. And I was pleased to see Teller given a start, because he's one that for me has a lot to prove. Is he going to be a useful player going forward, or is he going to be another sort of Josh Sims who looks good in patches but never really cements a place down in the team, sort of thing? So I was pleased to see him start, and to be fair, he did quite well. When I saw Shane Long, I don't understand it. How 35-year-old Shane Long can be the answer to any question that you've got at this stage of his career at the end of a season. We all know what he can do. We all know what he can't do. And it was interesting how the game played out, because I thought Shea Adams had one of his best games in terms of holding the ball up, knocking it off. He was absolutely outstanding, but barely gave the ball away, didn't give the Brighton defenders any time to do anything. I thought he had an excellent game. But if he's doing all that, he's not the goal threat. So you need the other striker to be the goal threat. And if the other striker is Shane, with the best one in the world, it's not going to work. So I was surprised that he was picked. I was also surprised that he lasted as long as he did. He had a couple of nice touches in the second half, but he is what he is. Yeah, sorry, I've waffled there. What was the original question? About the starting lineup. Yeah,
the guys coming in. Yeah, it was great to see Nathan Teller, wasn't it?
Yes.
I thought he was a bit of a bright spark, perhaps.
Yeah, I thought he used his pace to good effect. There's a couple of times Veltman, I think, was there right back. There's a couple of times he closed him down, and he just obviously wasn't expecting him to get there as quickly as he did. And he won a couple of free kicks and stuff like that, and generally did well. But you can tell he doesn't play that often, because it's every game, isn't it? He goes down with cramp or something, and he had to come off in the end. But I thought he did a good job, and I hope he gets given another opportunity against Palace. He certainly didn't play himself out of the team like some of the guys against Burnley clearly did. And he probably deserves another go next week. So good luck to him.
And Steve, we were obviously expecting to see some changes, but maybe not as many as 6. That's kind of like cup game, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think part of that is a reflection on A, how badly Thursday went, but also B, the fact that we had 1 day fewer preparation for the game. Brighton had played on Wednesday in what was essentially just a training game where they were defending against Man City for 90 minutes. So I don't think they'd really, other than sort of maintaining a sort of defensive shape, I don't think they really had to exert themselves an awful lot. Whereas our game against Burnley was obviously pretty physical affair that we got ran ragged at times, and sort of battered and bruised. So I think I was expecting at least 4 or 5. So yeah, I wasn't wholly surprised. It was interesting though that Bednarek continues to keep his place. When at the moment, other than obviously scoring the goal against Arsenal, he's in the team to defend, and he's not really doing much of it at the moment, which is a slight concern. Although, let's be honest, he's not alone in that. By any stretch of the imagination, but it's interesting that he seems to be the one that's kind of immune at the moment, whereas previously it was Salisu, and obviously we've seen he's had a huge tail off in form in the last month or so, and it was weird because he was particularly bad first half today, but actually second half was kind of back to his old self and looked pretty good. So hopefully all of that's out of his system. We're
going to need him, aren't we?
Move on from there. Oh, definitely, yeah. He should be the guy that we're building our defence around for the next year or two, depending on interest from elsewhere. But yeah, we'll see how that pans out, because obviously the last month has been a bit of an eye opener, I think, for people. I think we all kind of assumed that having reached a certain level, that all of a sudden, we've got the greatest thing since sliced bread again. He's going to stay at that level, and that's just what's going to happen. And actually, no, we've got to remember he's still 22, and his form is still going to fluctuate, and that's kind of down to the management to kind of harness that as best as possible.
Yeah, to manage that. Mark's watching on Facebook, and he says, "Why play Long when he's not going to be here next season? I'd rather Adam Armstrong was given a game to try and get his confidence up."
Yeah.
That's the argument, isn't it, Glenn? There's a couple of things in there. Is Shane Long going to get a new deal? Is he going to walk away? That's what we assume. And is it more about Adam Armstrong that Shane Long is starting in front of him? I don't know what Ralph's seeing in training during the week, but Armstrong's obviously not making a case for a start.
It's obviously something that we are not privy to, because on the face of it, Adam Armstrong, who we paid whatever it was, 15 million quid for, should be starting what are basically dead rubber games to see if he can get his confidence up, to see if he's going to be, fit for purpose for next season. Shane, you would think, is going to be leaving in the summer, but sometimes, we've got Theo Walcott on a psychologist contract, haven't we? He's not playing at all. We're paying him X £1,000 a week just to be good in the dressing room, sort of thing, and he can't get on a bench with 9 people. How many more of those do we need? I mean, we gave Kelvin Davis a contract like that for 4 years, and he was a non-playing goalkeeper. So surely Shane has got to be leaving in the summer. I would be amazed if he's not. So on the face of it, it makes no real sense why he's playing. So, but yeah, it has to be something that we don't know about, either training ground performance. Maybe Adam Armstrong's carrying a little injury. Who knows? It's a strange one. It certainly doesn't make sense to me. I can understand why Broja was left out after the Burnley game, but I think I was surprised. When I was initially reading down the team sheet before I got to Shane's name, I thought, "Oh, tell us up front," and then you see Shane's name and you think, "Oh no, he's not," and it was just it's just a bit of a surprise. I would have thought there would have been other options.
And as it stands, Steve, Long and Broja are both going to be leaving in the summer. So it's going to be Adam Armstrong, Che Adams up front next season, unless we go out and splash some cash. So
Lewandowski's available.
Tested the new owners. So can you see a reason why he's not playing, Steve? Is there anything that jumps out that we've missed? Because it's baffling.
No, I mean, I think it can only be what he's seeing in training, and also to be fair to Shane Long, I think we all probably thought that we'd barely see him as a first team player this season.
Yeah, when he came back from loan as well.
Yeah, he'd been on loan at Bournemouth, and he'd played a couple of games to start with and then got injured, and that was kind of his season done. But I think everyone kind of expected that, having been allowed to go out on loan for that period, the same would probably happen for the whole of this season. And actually, he's actually proven a very useful addition, particularly when we were having those the run of games, Christmas, New Year, sort of January, February, where you've got all basically two or three games a week constantly, with cup games thrown into the mix as well. He was very useful in terms of being able to ensure that we didn't have to stick off our first choice strikers out every game all the time. And we got through that period actually with a lot of good results. It was weirdly once we got through it, that we then started playing badly. So I actually, given his performances, particularly since Christmas, I actually wouldn't be surprised if we gave him another year. I can kind of just envisage Glen panicking suddenly. But no, it genuinely wouldn't surprise
Part-time
me, 'cause-
player, part-time ambassador, maybe.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
some of the work off Franny's plate.
Well, there's a space for an ambassador, isn't there?
Yeah, perhaps him and Theo can do it 1 week each.
Franny's doing it all at the moment. Glenn, the best thing about today, was it the character, do you think, to come back from being 2 down? Because we don't see that very often.
Just that we put a performance in, you
Yeah.
know, in the second
Eventually,
half.
yeah. But
Yeah, if I think if we'd been 2-0 up and it ended up 2-2, it would feel completely different. But you've come away from it thinking, yeah, we did well in that second half, and we can go into the next game and with a little bit of positivity. I mean, the positive again is Ward-Prowse. I mean, 2 goals, the standard free kick, which was obviously a little bit different, and that was a good shot from the edge of the box. That's, I dread to think where we'd be without him. And I think he's now our top scorer, which kind of highlights another problem that we've got. Again, I was talking to the Brighton fans on the way home, and they were bemoaning their obvious lack of a goal scorer. You think about it, we're really no different. We've got Che and Armando Broja have got sort of 6-ish each, and our top scorer is now a central midfielder who spends most of his time patrolling in front of the back four. So they're very, very similar in that regard. And it's a horrible thought. You just hope that with the World Cup coming up, he's quite happy to stay at Saints this season, and no one comes in with a huge amount of money for him, because without him, we'd be struggling big time.
what were the positives to take away from today, Steve?
Well, I mean, the result, I think, is a positive, as I say, given where we were at 44 minutes in. But other than that, as I say, it was a bit more cohesion. Because I mean, Burnley, we looked an absolute rabble for the vast majority of that. First 10 minutes, we were very good, and then as soon as they score with their first shot, all of a sudden we just collapse into a bit of a mess, which we never really recovered from, to be honest. Whereas today, at least when we went 2-0 down, there wasn't that sort of defeatism, which, I mean, we've mentioned it in the past, haven't we, fairly recently, that this season hasn't been like other seasons where you knew that as soon as we concede one, there would be sort of 2, 3, 4 to follow, and that there was absolutely no chance that we were getting ourselves back into a game. Whereas now, when we concede first, you do still think, it's not a hammer blow that all of a sudden our confidence is going to be shot to pieces, and now we're kind of hanging on for the next 5 or 10 minutes to see how many we let in this period. So I think getting back to that part of our sort of attitude, if you like, was a positive. Other than that, I mean, we were all right. But it was still one of those performances where we could easily still have lost that game, even after dragging it back.
It's a 45-minute performance, isn't it? It's not a full 90.
We're feeling defensively, we are still a train wreck.
Is it 4 games left to go? We've just got to 40 points, and we get a point away at Brighton, and we're going, it's all right. It's not a disaster. That kind of sums up the season, really, doesn't it? We're going to have to talk about Thursday night, a dreadful result away to a team who were in the bottom 3 and without a manager. Glenn, I guess after a solid performance against Arsenal, this was always going to happen, really.
Well, it shouldn't have done. So where do we start? Team selection was mind-blowing. All I can think is that he wanted to reward the players who played well against Arsenal, who got the result against Arsenal. But it's a completely different assignment. Burnley away is completely different to Arsenal at home. There's an
argument we didn't even necessarily play particularly well in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing that did happen in the Arsenal game is that we offered absolutely no threat going forward. So the same 11 players against Burnley offered next to no threat. For, 10 minutes, we did okay, as Steve said earlier. And then once the goal went in, we didn't do anything. Same as the Chelsea game, didn't do the basics, didn't win headers, didn't win tackles. tracking, closing down the wingers. I mean, that was the thing we highlighted last week about Burnley. We made Burnley look like prime Barcelona at times, which was ridiculous because we just weren't at it. And all their threat came from crossing the ball into the box, which was always going to be the case. They've got a 6'6" centre forward. They're always going to be loading balls into the box. I mean, it's a great goal by Connor Roberts, but Dwight McNeil had tried to do exactly the same shot 2 seconds earlier, and we didn't react to it. You know, we sent him inside and let him have a shot with his left foot, and bang.
Did I read it's his weaker foot, and he's only had 3 shots all season?
Sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, Roberts. I don't think Roberts had ever scored a senior goal before.
Yeah, brilliant goal.
Yeah, that was a great finish. I mean, particularly with your wrong foot. But yeah, it's just.
Is it one step forward and then 2 steps back, Steve? That kind of sums up the season as far as I'm looking at it now. You think one good game and then it's like another couple of steps back, and here we are again.
I mean, that one kind of felt like we kind of jumped off the wall as opposed to having steps in place. But it was just everything was so predictable. Like everything that Burnley threw at us was exactly as you would have analysed it, like in the 3 or 4 days before the game, and they'd have sat through endless videos of Burnley overloading the fullbacks and allowing Charlie Taylor and Dwight McNeil to put crosses in. And when it comes to Thursday night, oh look, we're letting them do it. It was just ridiculous. I mean, I think the only one thing that I think you look back in hindsight and say, well, actually, someone should just have done something there. So from the Roberts goal came as a result of Lianco blocking McNeil's shot with his face. And if he'd gone down in the same way that Burnley did, 3 times in that second half?
Yeah.
Holding his face, the ref would have been obliged to stop the game.
Head injury.
And they wouldn't have scored. And then second half, you get 2 occasions where basically we have the ball in their penalty area, but someone has gone down like a sack of spuds, holding some part of their head, and the referees just automatically stop play because he feels duty bound to do so. And you then get into this sort of vagary of the laws of the game, whereby if players stopped when the ball is in the penalty area, the ball automatically returns to the defending team, regardless of who was in possession. So obviously those 2 occasions, Burnley got the ball back, whereas we were the guys on the attack. I mean, let's be honest, we wouldn't have scored anyway.
No,
the way we played Thursday night, but
you'll still be playing now.
Oh yeah, quite possibly. But it's one of those where you can kind of see why the law was written in the way it was, but ultimately teams that kind of think about it a little bit, as Burnley very clearly have, will use it to their advantage. And we got completely screwed over twice there.
It's gamesmanship, isn't it? I mean, it's like, we had the old energy drink thing, which we did to death at the time. And but both those Burnley players who went down, or 3 of them, whatever it was, they both recovered quick enough, so the trainer didn't have to come on, so they didn't have to leave the pitch.
Yeah.
So there was So basically, just by going down, they won possession. That was the net result of that, and there was no injury. I mean, surely if you're going down saying you've got a head injury, you should have to leave the pitch to have some sort of head injury assessment. That would stop that at a stroke, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the game doesn't. Yeah, the game doesn't doesn't take concussion anywhere near seriously enough anyway.
No.
And needs to do more. And yeah, certainly there should be a concussion assessment with an allowable sub, I think, on a temporary basis for the 5 or 10 minutes that's required to do that. But of course, if you're Burnley and James Tarkowski's the guy who's gone down to try and stop the game with a claim he's got a head injury, he's probably not going to do that in future, because he's their best centre back, so they're not going to want him off the pitch for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. The first goal was a poor one to concede. The second goal, I know you took a bit of an issue with this, this Glen. Well, first of all, it's like, well, is it a foul on James Ward-Prowse? But also Jack Cour interfering with play, and they were checking it from every angle. And
I
you
don't.
seem to be.
Steve will probably have a better idea than me about the wording of the offside rule these days. But for me, he's headed it down. Is Cork offside in an offside position? Yes, he is. There's no one playing him onside. They seem to be talking about whether he actually touched the ball or not, or whether he did or whether he didn't. The ball was going straight to him, and he's jumped out of the way. So he's in Fraser's eye line without a doubt, even though it's slightly to the side. So I have no idea how on earth they can say that's not offside and he's not interfering with play. Because it seems to me now that if you take that to its ridiculous furthest limit, he can stand directly in front of the goalkeeper. And as long as he jumps out of the way when the shot comes in, that's fine. That's the way it seems to, it seems to play out for me if you're going to interpret the rules that way. Stuart Atwell, I don't know who it was on VAR. It's probably John Moss. I don't know, but I don't know who was on VAR. But I don't see how they can give that one as a goal. But as we were talking about with the head injuries and all that, it wouldn't have made the slightest difference to the result of the game, and it didn't matter. I mean, I guess it was an early, it was an early end to the game, if you like, making it 2-0 because we were never going to get 2 goals. I wondered if Oriol Romeo was going to get any closer to put a header wide with those 2 chances that he missed. I mean,
well, he had one today as well, didn't he?
Yeah. But that was basically, all we did up there. So it was a rubbish game. I thought the referee was rubbish. Thought the team selection was rubbish. Thought everything about it was rubbish, really. And and thankfully we got a point today.
Couple of other bits just on that game. I think, Steve, when you're playing against a team that are fighting to stay in the league like they are, surely the minimum you have to do is match their work rate, and we just don't seem to be able to do that for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do tend to have these just occasional games where all of a sudden just nobody seems to have any energy. And there doesn't even seem to be any logic. There's no pattern. It's not, we play against a certain type of team, therefore we've got nothing in the tank. Burnley were, to be fair, I mean, since Deitch left, actually, Burnley have played pretty well.
Never lost it.
7 points out of 9.
Yes, they beat Wolves. Beat Wolves today. They got a draw again away at West Ham, which they probably should have won, and they've beaten us. And I mean, I've seen two of those 3 games, and actually, they've been energetic. They've not been as direct as they have been in the past. They looked as if they had an actual game plan, and part of that was getting back to the old. I mean, one of the things that Burnley always used to do when they were proper sort of eyesores to watch was that they'd be in your face, and they would be like the energy would be there. They'd always be sort of putting pressure on you. So there's no easy pass. And I think for whatever reason, because Burnley had kind of slumped a little bit and hadn't been playing that way in the sort of last few games under Sean Dyche, that maybe we thought, well, okay, they're not going to press us very much, so therefore this is the way we're going to approach this. Whereas actually what ended up happening was that they were pressing us all over the place, and we didn't really know how to cope with it. Particularly once we got through the first 10 minutes where actually we were on the front foot. All of a sudden, Burnley took a step forwards and said, "No, we're not going to let you impose yourselves." And then we kind of sat back and went, "Oh, we weren't expecting that."
Yeah. A couple of things. We talked about the starting lineup, Glenn, and the fact that we didn't change it. There's the old adage about not changing a winning team, and actually maybe they'd earned the right to start. When it isn't working and you don't make a change until 65 minutes, that's the thing that fans start to go, hang on a minute, he needs to make a change here. We're not quite sure what's going on.
It was strange. I don't understand the starting lineup because, as I said, playing the 3 at the back means you've got wing backs, and they're loading crosses into the box from their fullbacks and from their wide midfielders. So automatically, the fullbacks, instead of having a midfielder to contend with, in our normal formation, they didn't have that, and it's the fullback who scores the first goal. So I didn't understand it. And basically we never looked like scoring really. And we kept 3 centre-halves on the pitch for the entire 90 minutes. So I do think that with about half an hour to go, Ralph probably gave up on it and thought this isn't going to happen. Let's just save people for Sunday's game. We had the chance, didn't we, when the 2 subs he did bring on, Redmond and Adams. Redmond put a really good ball over, and Adams did his usual and smashed it straight at the goalkeeper.
He needs to start scoring those, doesn't he?
Well, yeah. I mean,
even just a foot either side.
Yeah,
and the keeper's not saving it from that range.
I mean, he clearly can't do it deliberately, but he just seems to smash it straight at the goalkeeper every single time. And as Steve said, a yard either side. Even if he shanked it, he'd be scoring 15 goals a season. And instead, what's he on, 6 or 7? It's it's a strange one. So it was just, as I said, it was just bad rubbish the whole game. Really, I didn't understand really what Ralph was going with at the start, and it didn't work out. And it's another one that I think if he's honest with himself, he has to look at it and go, yeah, well, I didn't do great there. Reminded me a bit of the Villa game when we got beat 4-0 and he changed to the sort of diamond midfield, and that didn't work either, and we were equally bad in that game. But yeah, there you go. We move on. We did better today anyway.
Was it the 3 games in a week? Do you think, Steve, does that come into play a little bit with the extra the midweek game and having to think about the weekend and the recovery time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes into it a little bit, but at the same time, Burnley had the same schedule, Brighton had the same schedule, so it wasn't as if we were massively disadvantaged. I mean, Brighton had an extra day, but they were playing Man City. I mean, how much? I mean, as I said earlier, obviously it was a kind of just a defensive show in kind of sort of training mode, really, attack against defense, where, I mean, I don't know how much that takes out of you physically. I think it's more mentally.
Yeah.
Those sort of games are where you're just mentally exhausted from continually having to check over your shoulder to see where Sterling's run to, where Mahrez has run to, where Bernardo Silva's run to. Whereas they looked, I mean, physically they looked pretty fresh from the kickoff, whereas we didn't. But no, I mean the one thing I didn't get with Burnley, why the hell was that on a Thursday? There was no reason for that to be played on a Thursday. And it just comes back to this nonsense with the Premier League, just treating fans like absolute dirt.
Yeah. Crystal Palace next. Glen, they've had an all right season under Patrick Vieira on the face of it, but when you start to delve a little deeper under the bonnet, maybe not. I think I and a few others were expecting them to struggle this year. They've done better than we would have expected, perhaps.
I think the notion that they would struggle is because they've struggled the last couple of years under Roy Hodgson, and they were eye-wateringly bad to watch. And they've had the same problem for a couple of years. That is Wilfried Zaha or no one, to cause you any problems up front. But this year they do seem to have sort of more options. Mateta looks a handful. Is it Elise? Elise, how you pronounce it? He looks a decent player as well. So they've got more options, and it's a bit of a transitional season, I guess, for them. Patrick Vieira's first season in the Premier League as well. I think they've done okay. They haven't been usually once a season, Palace are looking like, bottom 6, may slip into the bottom 3, but they haven't really been anywhere near it this season. So I would say it is an improvement to what they've normally done. They got to an FA Cup semi-final as well. And it certainly won't be an easy game. Palace always test you physically. So if we, like we did against Burnley, just don't do the basics, then we're going to get beat. It's as simple as that. You have to. They're a good enough side now that you have to defend properly. You can't get away with, a couple of people not being at it you have got to be in their face the whole time. We know Mr. Zaha can be wound up, but I just think they've got a little bit more about them this year. A couple of players that they seem to have had kicking around for ages, like Milivojevic and MacArthur. I don't think they've been as regular this season. They've tried to sort of move on with slightly more talented players. So I think overall they'll be most fans at Palace will be quite happy with their season and looking forward to seeing what they do next year.
2-2 at Selhurst Park back in December. Steve, it's not going to be an easy one this weekend.
It'll be interesting to see how. I mean, obviously they don't play this weekend until tomorrow night against Leeds. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to basically not turning up for their FA Cup semi-final like we did last season, because obviously we didn't respond to that particularly well. And Palace are similarly safe in mid-table. They're not going down. They're not going to qualify for Europe. So essentially, they are playing for, 10th maybe. But it comes down to whether that is actually something that top-level players actually aim for. Is there a and this applies to us equally? Is there actually a desire from players to finish 9th as opposed to finishing 12th? Does that make any difference to players, or is it all about either you win something or you don't? I don't know. I think certainly the top players, it's all about winning stuff. But while we've got good players, they're playing for us and Palace respectively for a reason. And they're not at the very top of the game yet. Some might do, but at the moment they're with us, and that reflects kind of the level and also partly the sort of mentality, I think, of these players. But I think we'll probably have a better idea of what Palace are going to be like after tomorrow night. But if they put in another limp performance against Leeds, then I think we've got every chance of taking advantage of that on Saturday, because it may well be that their players have just said, right, we're done for the season. Let's just coast through. Which I think, given the plaudits that a lot of their players and the manager have had over the season, would be, I think their fans would be quite disappointed with that. Because Vieira's had rave reviews, Conor Gallagher rightly has had rave reviews. Eze and Mateta and Elise and even defensively, Johansson, who they signed for pretty big money, like 25 million or something mad, and Gahey alongside him, who they got from Chelsea for a similar fee. They've all been touted and sort of lauded at various stages during the season. And if that team then suddenly finishes 14th or 15th, you can't think, well, have they really done anything this year? Not quite so sure. And to be fair, the same applies to us. If we limp horribly over the line, as we have done in a number of seasons past, then you can't say, well, quite frankly, what was the point of all that?
Well, we said last week when we were doing the predictions, we were kind of joking about, well, we're almost better off predicting what team's going to turn up. Little did we know what was going to happen on Thursday night. Steve, I think you predicted a draw today, so I'll give you the honour of going first for the Crystal Palace prediction for the weekend. If you're watching live, by the way, stick your score predictions in the comments. What do you reckon, Saints against Palace?
We can't defend, so we're not going to keep a clean sheet. But I think Palace will give us chances. So, to be honest, I'll go for another 2-2. That'd be entertaining at least.
Entertaining game. Glenn?
Just like to say, this is the most pointless part of the podcast. But in amongst a lot of pointlessness, this is the most pointless bit.
The bar is quite low.
The bar is low, yeah. We'll go... this is the second time in a row I've agreed with what Steve said.
This is a chance to pick up some points on Dan, who's not here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm not helping, am I?
Oh, no. I'll go for a 2-1 win. Don't ask me why.
All right.
Yeah, I think we can defend well enough to only let in one horrendous goal, and hopefully Fraser will perform a madness and keep the score down, and we can nick it.
There has been some positive news this week, and that's the Saints women's team. Charles Patrick says, I've just joined you from a happy bus full of Saints fans on the way back from our cup win. I think Chris Walker is watching as well. So hello to everybody who's watching on that bus. Great result during the week against Portsmouth, 2-0. 5,100 fans at St Mary's for that game, which was brilliant. So they got the promotion playoff against Wolves to come, and then obviously a great 3-0 win today against Huddersfield to win the League Cup. It's brilliant to see, Glenn. But you were looking into the sort of the makeup of the league and what might happen should we win that playoff and the bottom of the league. It's not easy, is it?
I think it's. I mean, the rules were set at the start of the season, so you can't really complain about it too much. But I think it's absurd that in what is still basically quite a new setup in the women's game, that you can win the league by as far as Saints have done and by as far as Wolves have done in the north. And they're obviously two very good sides in the context of the leagues that they're in. And they don't both get promoted. It just seems absurd, especially when you look at the bottom of the championship where you've got Coventry who have been deducted 10 points and they've also only won 3 games all season. And you've got Watford who, as it stands, are going to stay up and they've only won 2 games all season. So surely it's about making the women's game as strong as possible. Now, I know that, when COVID hit, there was some teams got sort of special dispensation. I think we were one of them and got moved up a league. I'm kind of hoping that regardless of who wins or loses this playoff game, that both Saints and Wolves end up in the Championship next season just to make it stronger. But as it stands, we just have to assume that we have to have this one-off playoff in Stockport or wherever it is, which is slightly absurd on the face of it.
Yeah, the travelling is insane, isn't it, Steve? I was going to say, safe journey back to everybody. I think it was Birmingham today. They're travelling back.
Yeah,
from.
It's a Solihull today.
We've got to go past Wolves to play Wolves. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
It was. I mean, that's. I think for that one, I've kind of got a bit of sympathy with the league in that. Basically, it was the only sort of suitable venue that was available that weekend. I think there's by all accounts, they'd looked at places like Milton Keynes, even Birmingham, Coventry.
Single ground in London.
Well, I don't know. I guess the problem when you get into London is cost. And while there are a lot of clubs that are throwing money around in the women's game, the FA and the leagues are skint. So, from what I gather, Stockport gave up Edgeley Park for free.
Okay.
So I think that probably had a fairly significant bearing on it.
But you can be sure that there will be a great number of fans there, because I thought the attendance on that Wednesday night was brilliant, and really they're in form. That they got the momentum behind them. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, they're clicking at the right time, aren't they? They've put together some results, and they've had some difficult games. They had to go back up to Ipswich again. I think that's the 3rd time they've played them away this season. Played them in 2 cup competitions and won 1, lost 1, and came from behind to win that league game. So that was a sort of gutsy turnaround in the second half of that game, and I think that one has kind of been the catalyst for them kind of almost coasting through now the rest of these games, because by the sound of it, today's game against Huddersfield was, I think it was 3-0 in the end, but sounded like it probably was a little bit more comfortable than that. I mean, that Pompey game on Wednesday, I mean, that genuinely could easily have been 7 or 8. And yeah, I mean, don't know whether it's something about pulling on that red and white striped shirt that makes centre forwards miss chances. But I mean, to be fair, the women have been scoring goals for fun this season.
Yeah, at least one of the teams is.
Yes, we've actually had a few 9-0s in our favour, haven't we, this year? So that's
and as Chris points,
it's been good to see.
Chris points out it doesn't bother the women's team playing 3 in a week. They've pretty much been doing it every week since the beginning of March. So, good to see, and we wish them well. Thanks for joining us this week. Before we say goodbye, a shout out to some of our much loved patrons. Thanks as always to them for their support. In our Matt Letizier tier, we've got Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Ed Busy, Phil Cook, and Nick Higston. In the Francis Benali tier, we've got Nick Reed, Matt Hall, and David Melton. To find out more about becoming a TSP patron and all the benefits that come with that, then do check out the website during the week. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Glenn. Don't forget to follow this podcast wherever you're listening. On the socials, it's at Total Saints Pod. You'll find us on Twitter and Facebook. You can always drop us an email via the website as well. It's great to hear from you. And don't forget the TSP 200 live show is going to be happening on Friday, the 27th of May. We'll be at the Five Rivers Sports Bar in support of the Saints Foundation. The link to buy tickets is in the description for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening this week. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.